Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be creating this cool grid layout you see here, and we have this nice smooth animation with our mouse move so we can navigate the grid, and also we're going to be implementing these nice smooth transitions when we click on a grid item, and it will load up the relevant content for each of our projects. Okay, we can return here and it will go back to the grid and we'll resume the nice smooth grid animation. Okay, so it doesn't matter where you click on the grid item, it will always, for example, if we click on this one over here, it will always go to the center of the screen and have that nice smooth transition, and then we can just go back to the grid. But yeah, I hope you enjoy, guys, and let's get going. Thanks. Okay guys, so let's get started. So the first thing we want to do here is I'm just going to open up my terminal. We're going to start completely from scratch here. So if we just open up a terminal, and then I'm just going to CD into the desktop, or CD into, or move directories to whatever folder where you store your projects. And then we're going to create a new directory here for our project. So I'm just going to say mkdir for directory, make directory, and we're going to call this projects hyphen showcase, like so. Okay, and then we can CD into this folder. So we'll say CD project showcase, like so. And then we're going to create 3 files here. So we'll just say touch, and we say index.html. We're going to say another one, touch style.css, like so. Okay, and now if we open up VS Code, and then I'm going to open this folder we've just created. So I'm going to go to my desktop, project showcase, open that up, and you can see there's our 2 files there as well. I'm also going to create a new directory in here for our JavaScript files, so we can say JS, and here I'm just going to store, well, we're going to have a few files in here, but for now we'll just get going with an app.js file, so we'll say app.js, like so, and we'll also just have a projects .js file, as well as a utils.js file. Okay, and I'll show you what these will all be used for shortly. Okay, so that's our basic project structure set up now in VS Code. Let's get going with the HTML first. Okay, let's get the boilerplate code up and running so we can see what we're working with. So if we come to our index.html file, I'm going to zoom in here so you can see a bit clearer. And what we want to do is we just want to get some boilerplate code up and running. It's just to do the exclamation mark, and then you should see this appear in VS Code. Okay, and then if we come into the top here, underneath this meta tag, I'm going to do a link tag. I'm just going to link this to our style.css file, which is here in the same directory. And then in the body section, we can do a script file, and with the source attribute here. And then we're just going to point that to /JS for our JavaScript directory folder here. And then also we want to point this to our app.js file. And now we want to also say type here, and we want to set this to module. And what this will allow us to do, in this app.js file, it will allow us to import specific functions or variables from these 2 additional JS files we have here. So we're going to have some utility functions in this JavaScript file, and we're also going to just include an object of our projects containing all the images, pictures, content in this JS file here. So now if we come to our index.html first, let's close this down so you can see a bit clearer. Now in the body, we're just going to say, actually I'll change the title first. We can just set this title to be projects. So this is just going to be like a project showcase where you can just click on each of the different project images, and it will expand the project and you'll see all the details. So let's just come into the body, and we'll say the first thing is just h1, and I'm going to give this a class of header, and this will just be like your website title. I'm just going to use my name for now, like so. And if we just open this in live server as well so we can see what we're working with. Okay, and I'll move this over here. Okay, so there's our h1. Now coming underneath this, the next thing I want to do here is we're going to have a main element. Okay, so we say main, And then in here, we're going to have a div of a class of container, like so. And then we're going to have 3 columns here. So say column, div of a class of column, and I'm just going to copy that down twice. Now, the next thing we want to do, underneath this main element here, coming outside, we're just going to say a div of a class called content. And then in here, we're just going to have an image. And this class, we're going to give this a class as well. We'll say class content main image, like so. So content _main _image. Alt, I'm just going to say content image for now, like so. Okay, so actually let's just leave that for now. Okay, that's okay. Now come underneath here, come underneath the image, we want to have a div, and this is going to have a class of content _container. And then in here, this will have 3 elements. So we'll have content _header. This is going to be the title of the content. Then we'll have a div of a class of content text. And then finally, we will have a close button. So we'll just say dot close, and we can just say, I don't know, something like return here. And this will return to the home screen or the projects page. Okay, so that is it for HTML. So we're going to be doing everything else with kind of JavaScript, like injecting all the content, using, so it'll be that pure JavaScript based to fill the page with content and adjust images, that kind of thing. So now if we just come to our style.css, the first thing I want to do here is just remove all of the default margins and paddings from our document. Okay, so we'll set the margin to 0. You'll see when we do that, we lose all of the default margins. So the page, the browser comes with automatic margins here. So we want to remove those. And then we're also going to set the padding to 0. And then we're going to say box sizing. And also I just need to change this to CSS. Make sure you have this set to CSS down here. This is pure CSS. So say box sizing of border box. That just gives you the CSS IntelliSense here. Okay, and then underneath this, I'm just going to get a Google font actually. We're going to say enter Google font. And I'm going to just I've selected the regular version. Okay, so if we just copy the link tag here, and then I can paste this link tag just above our style.css link tag in our HTML file. And then if we just copy the CSS as well, we can click this button here and then come to our CSS and just paste that into our global style. So now you'll see when I save that, we'll have that nice inter font applied to our text. And then I'm just going to adjust the letter spacing as well. So we'll say letter spacing minus 0.05 EM. That'll just bring the text slightly close together. It looks slightly better, I think, more stylistic when it looks a bit too spread out there for me. So we'll just adjust that. And then I'm just going to set the font weight as well. We'll set that to around 400 just to make it a bit lighter. And then I'm going to set the color to white. Okay, cool. So now if we come underneath this, let's move to our, we'll set the HTML on the body. I'm just going to say here background color, and we'll set this to 161616 for a nice dark grey. That should be HTML. Okay, and then I'm also just going to say over scroll behavior. So you see what this is doing at the moment, we can over scroll like that. We don't want that to happen. We get that like bounce. So I'm just going to set the over scroll behavior to none. And then that stops the bounce happening. Okay, so now that's it for HTML body. Next thing I want to do is just adjust our P tags. So for any paragraph tags, I'm just going to set a margin of 0.5 rem. Okay, that will just give it some nice even spacing between our content paragraph tags. The next one I want to do here, we're going to say the header. Okay, so remember we set our H1 class, H1 here, so with our text to class of header. So we're just going to target that now. So I'll just say dot header. And we're going to have this, so this is position. it'll be fixed. So when we scroll the screen, it will always stay at the top left hand side of the screen. And then we're just going to say also as well, we'll give it z index of 3 to bring it in front of all other content on the screen. We're going to set the mixed blend mode on this to be difference. And this will have a cool effect when it goes over the top of images. You'll be able to see it, or it'll adjust its colour to blend in with the images. And then we'll also set the left position in here to 5 viewport widths, like so. And we'll set the top to be 5 VH. Okay, so next thing we want to do here is next I'm going to target the main. Okay, so we say main, and I'm going to set this to position fixed as well. We don't want this to move when we scroll. And then we'll say top 0, left 0. So that means it will start from the top left hand side of the screen. And then we're going to give this a width of 100% and a height of 100%. So this should fill our screen now. If we set the background colour to orange, for example, you'll see our screen is completely filled by that main element. Okay, and this is where our project grid is going to go. So just with that orange colour, don't want that. That's it for our main element. So next thing we're going to do here is we're going to target the container element. Okay, and that's this container within our main element here. So let's just come underneath the main and we'll say container, and we're going to position this absolute. Okay, we're going to set the width to be 150%. Okay, so this will take up the screen plus an additional 50% of the screen. Okay, and then what we're going to do here is we're going to set the left, so we're going to move it. Oh, actually, we just want to do the height as well to make that 150%. And then what we need to do here, we need to adjust the left position. So we're going to say minus 25%. This will move it off to the left-hand side of the screen by 25% of its width. And then we do the same for the top as well. So say top negative 25%. Okay, next one I want to do here is adjust the transform origin. So we'll say transform origin, and we'll set that to center. And what this will do, when we apply CSS transformations with JavaScript, it's going to transform it from the middle, okay, middle of the div, the container div. And then we're going to say padding here of 5 rem. And then we're also going to say display flex. And what this will do, so we have our container here and it contains 3 columns. Okay, so what display flex will do, it will take each column and it will adjust, it will make them be next to each other. Okay, so it will position them in a row direction. Okay, so that's what the display flex is doing. And then we're also just going to say here will change, and we're going just to say transform. And what this does is it tells the browser that we are going to be performing a transformation on this div. So it's going to be moving with our mouse movements, or animating rather. So we need to tell the browser that this will change, and therefore the browser will be able to optimize for this CSS transformation. And next one I want to do here is target each of our columns. So remember we gave them a class of column here in our HTML. So kind of underneath this we'll say dot column, and then we can say here flex of 1, and this will make them all equal in width. And we want to display these with flex as well. And this time we need to adjust the flex direction to be column. Okay, because we want all of the inner projects to be underneath each other in a column direction. So if I just do a border here, 1 pixel solid red, just so you can see what we're working with. There's our columns there, okay. Cool, and then, so what we want to do after that is I'm just going to say justify content. Space around, like so. And then we're also going to say align items center. So this will just give some nice spacing between each of our project items within our columns, and it'll also center them horizontally as well. Okay, so we're nearly there. Let's just move on next to our items. So we're going to basically with JavaScript create some item divs. These will be the outer divs which house our project images. Okay, so we'll say item here, And we're going to position these relative. And then we're going to give these a width of 25 viewport widths. Now it's important we give these a fraction. So this means it'll be 25% of the screen width, okay? So it's important that we give these a fractionate amount of the screen because we're going to be applying transformations relative to the screen size, okay? And this will make it able to, when we click on the grid item, it will fill the complete width of the screen, okay? So we're going to times it by 4 because 25% times 4 is 100%. That will make this fit the 100% of the screen when we scale it up, okay, when we click on it. I'm going to give it a height of 20 viewport heights, like so. So again, that's 20% of the screen height, basically. Okay, and then we're going to give this a transition time of 0.5 seconds. This is the time it will take for the scaling to occur when we click on our grid item, the animation time. And so again, we're going to set display to flex. And I'm going to justify content center. I'm going to center its content and align item center. So this will just center any images that we add to within these item divs. Okay. We're going to set the overflow to hidden. Don't want to see any kind of images overflowing these divs. And then we're going to set the cursor to pointer as well. So when we hover, we'll get a nice hover, a nice like hand appear to show we're hovering the div. Okay, so next thing we want to do here is I'm going to target all image elements. And we're going to position these absolute. I'm going to say a width of 100%. A height of 100%, and then also we're just going to set the object fit. So we say object fit, we're going to set that to cover, and we're going to say object position center. And what this will do, this object fit cover will basically, for our images, what we're doing here is we're fitting our images to fill the size of these item containers. So this object fit cover will ensure that the aspect ratio of the image is preserved when we do this. Okay, it won't be stretched out as we're making it the same size of our parent div. So that's what an object fit cover does. It just keeps the aspect ratio so our images don't look stretched, and then we're positioning them center, so we should see the center of the image relative to our divs, our item divs, parent divs. Okay, so come underneath this, we're going to just target the content div next, and we're nearly done with our CSS, guys, not long left now. Then we can move to the JavaScript. And here I'm just going to say position, absolute. We'll say a width of 100%, height of, we'll just say 200 viewport heights for now, just so we can see some scrolling when we open up our content. We're going to set the opacity to 0 when we initially launch our page, because we only want the content to load when we click on our a related project image in the grid. Okay, so now you can see that's gone. And then also I'm just going to say a min height of 100 VH. Actually, what we can do, we can take that height out and we can just set a min height for now. That should be min height. Okay. And then we're going to set pointer events to none. So what you can see now at the moment, we can basically, we want to set pointer events to none just so we can't click on any buttons or anything on our content div when it's not visible on the screen. So we just do that now. So we set pointer events to none. And then we're also just going to say a transition again of 0.5 seconds, like so. And then we're just going to say background color. Again, we'll set that to the same as our normal background color. So now you'll see, if we move this opacity, it's the same background color. You can see the red borders for our columns disappear. And then we'll just set the z index here of 1. So we bring it in front of our home grid. So say z index 1, like so. Okay, cool. So now what we want to do, we're going to say underneath this, do the content again, and we're going to be applying an active class with JavaScript. And when we apply this class, we want the opacity to be 1 so we can see it. And then we want to be able to click on it and interact with the content. So we need to set the pointer events to be all, like so we can interact with it. Okay, and then we're nearly there. So now we just need to say content main image. Remember, this is the main image that we created here in our content. So if I just copy this class over, and then we can come underneath here, we'll say content main image, and this is going to have a width of 100%, a height of 80 viewport heights. And what we're doing here, we're making this the same scaling as this would be. So if we come up here to our items, where's our items? Come here. You can see here, so 25 times 4 is 100, and 20 times 4 is 80. So that's what we've done here. So we've had 100% and 80 viewport heights here, effectively 80% here. And this is just going to be the same size as when we scale this item up. Okay, so that's why we're doing these numbers here, these figures. And again, we're just going to set object fit to be cover, and object position center, like so. And I'm just going to also say margin bottom. We'll set that to 1 rem, just so we have some spacing for our additional content after. Okay, and then next thing I'm going to do is target the content _ container, position relative, so position relative here, and we're going to give this a width of 90%, just to give it some spacing on the left and right. We're going to set the left to 50%, and then we're just going to translate X minus 50% to center it. So this will just center our content. So we'll just say border 1 pixel solid green, and if we take off the opacity of 0 here, okay, that should be 50%. Okay, you can see now our content will be nice and centered there. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So now what we need to do is come back here underneath the content container. I'm just going to say content text next, content _ text, and here we'll just say margin, and we'll say 1 rem 0. So this will give it 1 rem at the top and bottom margin, and 0 to the left and right. So there's no additional margin to the left or right of the text. And then finally, I just want to say .close hover, and then we'll just say opacity of 0.5, and we'll just say cursor pointer. So now you'll see when we hover, and what we need to do is just take off that pointer events for now. You see now when we hover, we get that opacity on the back button. So that's what that pointer events does. When we put that on, you can see there's no more interaction with that. Okay, and we can take that opacity, we can put that back on now as well. Okay, and that is it for our CSS. Okay, I'm going to leave these red borders on for now, but we'll remove those later. Okay, so now next thing we want to do here is I'm just going to actually copy over some pre-made, we're going to go to our projects folder. Okay, so I'm just going to say let projects equal, and this is going to be an array, and here we're just going to I'm just going to copy over some boilerplate project template. Okay, so what this is, we have 9 different objects here, okay, and each of these objects contain an image key, a title, and content. So this image, I've just sourced some random images from unsplash.com. Okay, so unsplash.com is a great website just for sourcing images which you can use on your website. Okay, so I've gone through here, if I just copy this, and I've just got like some random landscape images. So let's copy this link here. So it's really important for this type of project that you want to select some high quality images, okay? Because obviously we're going to be scaling these up to the width of the screen, so they need to have a fairly decent resolution, and that's what you can get with Unsplash. There's some brilliant images on there. So I've just got a bunch of random landscape images, So these are used for the image key in each of our project objects. I've then gone through and we've added a title as well. So this is title 1, title 2, title 3. Obviously these would be the titles of your projects or whatever you want to use this grid for. And then finally we have a content, okay, and this is basically just an array of paragraphs, okay. So we have 3 paragraphs. You can see I've just got in the first paragraph here this is just some test content. Then we have like some lorem text here for the second part of the array, and then here as well. So these are all different paragraphs, and yeah, obviously add the paragraphs that are relevant to your projects. But this is just obviously just to make this a bit quicker. I've just done some text here and just copy this over really quickly. Next thing we want to do here as well is want to export this. Okay, so we'll say export, and I'm just going to say projects. Okay, and the only reason we're doing this in a separate file is just so we can save space in this app.js file. Okay, so now what we can do in that app.js file is we can just say import projects. I think I called that projects, didn't I? That should be projects, like so. Because we called this array projects up here, and then we can just import that, and then remember to add .js like so here. So now if I console.log projects, then we come to our browser, open up the console in the browser, and you can see now we have our array of projects here. Okay, we can expand those. We have our content, our image, our title, that kind of thing. Okay, cool. So now what we can do is I'm going to also just create some utility functions as well. This is what, by the way, when we obviously when we added the type module here, this will allow us to do that import. For example, if I take this type module out, we won't be able to do that anymore. Okay, we'll get an error in our console saying cannot use import statement outside of a module. So that's why we have to add this type module attribute to our script tag. Okay, so now we're also going to come into our utils folder first. Let's just get our util function sorted. So this is just going to be a basic lerp function. Okay, so we can say function lerp, and this takes in a start, takes an end, and it takes in a time variable. Spell function right. And then the equation for this is just return start times 1 minus t, and then we can say plus end times t. I use this function all the time. It's brilliant for animations. It's just basically used to return. So you'll have a starting figure of, say, for example, if we had 10 here, and we have an end figure of 20, and this takes in like a fraction. So if we had that as 0.5, that would be halfway between the start and the end. So 10 and 20, halfway between that would be 15. Okay, so that's what this is doing. And we're going to be using a request animation frame function to make this apply smooth animations to our grid when we move our mouse. So you'll see shortly how that works. And again, I'm just going to export this in an object, and we'll just say lerp. And I'm also just going to import that into our main app.js file. So we'll say lerp from utils.js. Okay, so that's how import's done. So now, for example, if I say lerp, or we can say console.log lerp, and if we just, for example, had 0 as the start, 10 as the end, and 20%, so 0.2. Okay, this should log 2 into the terminal. Okay, because 20% between 0 and 10 is obviously 2, and there you go, we have that. So that's what that lerp function does. That's the equation, and this is what we're going to be using to build these really nice animations when we move our mouse. Okay, so now if we come into our app.js file, I'm just going to do my query selectors now. So the first thing we want to do is target our content. So we'll come under here, we'll say const content equals document dot query selector dot content. Remember to add a dot as we're targeting by the class name here. So content is a class, so therefore we have to ensure that we have the dot here. Next, we're just going to say const content image equals document dot query selector, and then we're just going to say that was content main image here. So I'll just copy this, and then we can say dot content main image like so. Next thing I want to do is we're just going to say const content header, and that's going to equal let's just copy this down, actually save me writing out document query selector over and over again, and here we'll just say content double underscore header like so, and then we'll say const content text, that's going to equal document.query selector content text like so, and then we'll just say const content close is going to equal document.query selector, and I think we just set that to close, didn't we? Yeah, close here. So when we click on this content close button, so yeah, we'll just say close like so. Okay, so that's it. Also, oh yeah, we also want to select our container as well, so say const container, that's going to equal document.query selector container, and then also we want to do the columns as well, so we'll just say const columns, that's going to equal, and here we're going to use an array with a spread operator here, and here we're going to say document.query selector all, and here we want to target all columns like so. So if we just test that, console.log columns, and you can see we have our 3 columns there like so, so that's working great. Okay, now next thing we want to do is we're just going to create an empty projects array for now. This is going to be used to store all instances of our projects from this projects file here, and then we're also just going to say have a variable called animating, that's going to equal true when we first load the page. You'll see why we're doing this shortly. It's basically when this variable is set to true, we're going to, whenever we move our mouse, it will follow the mouse, this grid. Otherwise, if it's set to false, the animation will stop and it won't resume until that's set back to true. Okay, next thing we want to do here is I'm going to create a class, okay, and this is going to be a class called project. And what this does, so to do a constructor here, this is going to basically just contain all of our instances of each project. It's going to contain the different methods as well for each class, or each instance of each class. So we can say here what these do. We do a constructor here, so they take in the image, they take in an index as well, they also take in the title and the content of each project. Okay, and then what we can do here, we just say this.image equals image, this.index equals index, this.title equals title, and this.content. So just to explain what's going on here, so this is like object-oriented programming. When we let me just do a bit more. We'll keep going, and I'll explain as we load up these projects that we've imported up here. So actually, what I can say actually, so if we just say console.log this. So if I just come underneath of our projects for now, okay, so I'll just say our class here. If we just say projects, so remember we imported our projects here, and we can say .for each, okay, so this will loop through each of our projects, and then we can go here, project. So this for each, it passes in the project, and we can also pass in the index like so. And then we can say, yeah, we want to say let new project equal new, and then we can set a new instance of that class, okay, and then we want to pass in here. Remember, you have to take in the so obviously if I just console.log project for now, you'll remember when we import our projects, Okay, yeah, projects array, that should be. Let's change that to projects array because we're already bringing in projects up here. There you go. Okay, so what you can see here, so we're console.login each project, and what that contains is obviously our content, our title, and our image. So what we can say here, we want to create a new, for each project, we want to create a new instance of this project class, okay? And then if I just remove this console log, what this will take in, and with this for each, we're also passed in the index as well. So we can say here, so the first argument that the project class takes is the image, so we'll just say project dot image like so. Next is the index, we just pass in the index there that we passed in with the for each method. Then we also want to do project dot title, and then project dot content. Okay, and then you can see we are now, because we're console.login this, for each of the new project instance that's generated, we now have each of our, we've created a new project class instance for each project that we've imported. Okay, and then what we want to do here is just add these new projects to this projects array up here. So to do that, we just say projects array dot push new project. Okay, so now if we console.log projects array, you'll see we have our array of projects here, and then we can, you know, access the methods for each instance of this project, of these projects. Okay, so let's remove these console logs, don't need those. Now, if we come back into our class, the first thing I want to do here is I'm going to say as well, we're going to set this dot active equals false. And then we're also going to just create a method called this.create item. Okay, and this will be in our class. So if we come outside of the constructor, we're going to create a method called create item. Okay, now what we do here, we're just going to say this. We're going to next make class instances. So we're going to create divs and set them to for each instance of each class. We can say this dot grid item equals document dot create element. I'm going to create a div element here, and then we're also going to say this dot grid item dot class list dot add item. Okay, we need to add the item class to apply this item CSS that we have here. So this will give it the width and the height of 20 viewport heights, that kind of thing. And then we also want to say this dot image equals document dot create element. We want to create an image element, and then this dot image dot source, like so, is this dot image. Remember, we passed in this class, each class instance has its own image attribute, so that's what we can set there. This dot image source equals this dot image, and then we're just going to say this dot grid item dot append child, and we want to append this dot image, like so. Okay, and then come underneath this, we next want to specify which column we want to apply this grid item to. So to do that, what we're going to do, we're going to say let I for index equal this dot index, and then we want to use the mod operator, and then we want to specify the columns dot length. Remember, we had our columns variable array up here, so there'll be 3. So this will be I, the index mod 3, and this will determine which column the grid item will be appended to. Okay, so now we can just say columns I dot append child, and then we can say this dot grid item. Now you can see we have our projects appended, like so. That's looking good. Okay, so now next thing I want to do actually one thing I do want to do here is just, because these all look it looks a bit square, so I'm just going to apply adjust the CSS for the middle column. And to do that, I'm just going to say, come underneath that column here. I'm going to say dot column, and then we'll say env child 2, so this is the middle column, and I'm just going to say justify content space between, and now you can see, it's more uneven. We get that nice kind of circular pattern for images. And I'm also just going to remove now this red border because it doesn't look great. Okay, cool. So that's looking okay now. So next thing we want to do, come back to our app .js file, and I also just want to add an event listener. Okay, so to do that, we're just going to say this.gridItem.add event listener, and we want to listen out here for a click, like so, and then this will say, well, when we click on each grid item, we're going to make it trigger another method within the class, which we're going to create now, called activate. So I'll create a method called activate here, and now I can just say this.activate. And what we need to do here is say .bind this. And what this does, this bind keyword, it just binds this instance of the class for this method. Okay, so when we do click on the grid item, it will trigger the activate class for the relevant instance that we've clicked. Okay, so if I just say, for example, console.log this, okay, this.activate, should be activate.bind this. Okay, so now when I click, you'll see we just get that instance. Okay, so this is that div item. Again, if I click this, we get that grid item there. So that's what when we bind this, it means it binds this instance of the class to this event listener. Okay, so that's what we're doing there. Now, if you come into the activate function, actually, I think for now, let's move on to our grid animation. So when we move our mouse, I want to just get the animation sorted. Actually, no, we'll do that after. So let's go to activate for now. And in here, in our activate, we're just going to say, first thing we want to do is say document.body .scroll top. And that's going to equal 0. And then just to make this more browser compatible, actually, is also going to say document element .scroll top. Okay, and then we're just making them both equal 0. So that means it will scroll to the top of our viewport when we click on this on any of these items. Okay. And then next thing we want to do here is we're going to set this.active. That's going to equal true. Remember, when we initiate our project items, we set this.active to be false. So when we click on the item, it will set this.active to true. And then we're also going to set the global animating variable, which we specified up here. We're going to set that to false. And this will stop the grid moving with our mouse moves while we're interacting with a project item. Okay. And then the next thing we want to do here is we're going to create a for loop. And then whilst I is less than projects array.length, we're going to say I++. And then here we're just going to say if projects array I dot index is not equal to this dot index. That means for all for all other projects which we're not interacting with, what we want to do here is want to make them disappear. So we'll just say projects array I, and then we want to target their grid item, which is the parent div, and then we're going to say .style.opacity equals 0. Now we'll make it go see-through. Okay, so that should be if, I don't know why I did this, if, like so. So now you'll see when we click on a project that we want to interact with, all the others will disappear. That's what that's doing. Okay, so that's that part. So we've made them all go disappear. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to obviously expand these to fill the screen, these images when we click on them. So the relevant one we've clicked on, we want it to transition to fill the screen. So to do that, what we need to do is use the getBoundingClientRect function, which comes with JavaScript. So to do that, we're going to say let, and we're going to destructure this function. So we can say left, top, width, and height. Okay, so we put them into an object, and we can say this dot grid item dot get bounding client rect. So now if I console.log left, top, width, and height, you should see what this does. This means that this div here, or this grid item, is 247 0.5 pixels from the left. It is 388.4 pixels from the top of the screen. It has a width of 165 pixels and a height of 194 pixels. Okay, so that's what that getBoundingClientRect function does. It's really handy for getting dimensions of your elements on your screen and where they are located in the viewport. Now, next we want to do here, this takes a bit of maths to determine like how to scale the image and what position it should take to fill the screen when we scale it up. So I'm just going to create some new functions here, well, new variables, sorry, called x and y, and x is going to equal window dot inner width. So we're going to take the inner width in pixels of the viewport. We're going to divide that by 2, and then we're going to subtract the left, and then we're going to say plus, and we're going to take the width in brackets divided by 2. Okay, and then for y, we're going to say let y equal window dot inner height divided by 2, and then we're going to minus the top, and then we're going to say plus height again in brackets divided by 2 again, and then here we're also going to subtract window dot inner height times 0.1. Okay, so just say minus window dot inner height times 0.1. And then what we want to do with this, we're just going to say, come underneath here, we're going to say if this dot active, which will be true as we set this dot active up here, then we're just going to say this dot grid item dot style dot transform, and that's going to equal, we're going to use backticks here, we're going to say translate 3D, and then we're going to use template literals here, so we'll pass in the x for the first argument, pixels. For the second argument, we'll pass in the y variable, which we created for pixels as well, and then 0 for the 3D element. And then what we also want to do is scale this by 4. Okay, so let's see what that does. And now you can see when we click on our image, we get that nice scaling applied, no matter where we click, and it always comes to the correct proportions, no matter, it always transforms to the correct positioning. Okay, so that's looking good. And this is why I said it's important to get high quality images, because obviously we're scaling the width, and you know they need to be proportionate to the screen size. Okay, so now what we want to do here is we're next going to let's come back to our VS Code. So come underneath this, let's make this a bit bigger. Once we've scaled that up, we next need to set the content. Okay, so we'll just say set content, And here we can just say, well, first we need to do is just delete the previous content. So I can say content header dot inner HTML equals nothing. And we'll also just say content text dot inner HTML equals nothing. So we'll reset that. And then we're going to set the content image dot source, and we're going to say equals this dot image. Okay, so it's going to be the same image as the grid item that we've clicked. And then after that, we're just going to say, we're going to create our new header. So we'll say let header equal document dot create element. I'm going to create a h1 element, and then we're just going to say header dot text content equals this dot title, and then we can just say content header dot append child, and we want to append that header text like so. And then what we want to do now is loop through each paragraph in our content array. So I can just say for let I equal 0 whilst I is less than this dot content dot length. And we can say I plus plus. And then here for each of our paragraphs we're just going to say let text equals document dot create element, and want to create a P for paragraph element. We'll say text dot inner text, or text content, sorry, equals this dot content, and we want to pass in that index or the iteration we're currently on. And then we can just say content text dot append child, and we'll just say text that we've just created. And then that's it. So now our content should be applied to our content div, which we can't currently see. And then what we want to do here is we want to therefore set, we're going to do a set timeout function here. So set timeout, we'll add a slight delay to this animation, and that takes in a callback. And here we're just going to say content. So remember we had our global content div up here, and we're just going to say content dot style, or class list, sorry, dot add. We want to add the active class. Remember when we set the active class to our content, it brings the opacity to 1 and allows us to interact by setting the pointer events to all. Okay, so now you can see there's our content. Come up a bit too quick actually, so what I would like to do is, that should be transition. Okay, and also, yeah, okay, that's looking okay there. Okay, yeah. So now, next thing I want to do here is I just want to actually set the timeout. We need to set the timeout, don't we? Yeah, okay. So let's come back to our JavaScript, and we'll set this timeout to be, we'll set it to be delayed by half a second. And that looks more smooth. Okay, so why is this coming up here? What I need to do actually, I'm going to set this content main image to be position relative. And that will bring our content down here. Okay, so I just want to also remove this green border because it looks horrible. Okay, so Okay, so now, yeah, we're getting our content appear. Why is that? We've got a slight indentation there, which I don't like. Okay, these p tags have this margin which I want to kind of get rid of, so let's do that. P 5 rem and 0. Okay, so now we no longer have that. Cool. Okay, so that's looking good. And the next thing I want to do as well is just when we the content, let's set the height for now to 200 viewport height so we can scroll a bit. Okay, cool. Okay, yep, so that's looking good. Now, next thing I want to do is deactivate these. So we're going to add a class or a method called deactivate into our class. So let's do that now. Okay, so come out now of this activate, we'll say deactivate. And here, what we want to do is I'm just going to say, we'll set this.active equals false, like so. And then I'm also just going to say this.gridItem.style .transform equals, and we just want to reset the transformations here basically. So we're just going to say, we can copy this up here. So to reset this, we can just say, well, this would be 0. This would be 0. And we want to scale it to 1, just 1. Okay. Cool. That won't work yet because we need to obviously add this to an event listener. And then we can just say this dot grid item dot style, because when we apply this, this deactivate is only going to be called for all instances of our project. So we can just say dot style dot opacity equals 1. Okay, and then what we're going to do here is I'm just going to say, come under here, we can say content close. Let's change that actually. We can say content close dot add event listener. I'll listen up for a click, and then we can say here content dot class list dot remove. We want to remove the active class, and then we also want to say here document. We want to scroll to the top again. Body dot scroll top equals 0. Actually, we can copy this up here. Equals 0, and then we're just going to set another timeout. So set timeout here, and then we can say animating equals true. This will make the grid follow our mouse movements again. Again, we want to delay that by 500 milliseconds so the animation can finish first. And then underneath this, we're just going to do another for loop. You could do a for each here, but I'll just go old school. So while less than, we're going to want to loop for each of our projects in our projects array. And then we're just going to say projects array dot deactivate. Okay, so now when we click on this back button here, okay. bug there, see what's going on. So this grid item. So content.class list or remove active. This grid item style. What's going on here? Got an error. Cannot set properties undefined. Setting opacity. Line 77. Okay. Should work now then. Okay, yeah, cool. Okay, so that looks like it's working. Now we just need to do one more thing, which is implement the animations. Okay, so to do that, we're nearly done, guys. We can just say function animate, and here we're just going to say if animating. So if that animating variable is set to true, then we're just going to say, actually we do need to do one thing. So we need to set some mouse coordinates here. So I'm going to say let mouse coordinates equal, this is going to be an object. We're going to set x to 0, y to 0, target x to 0, and target y to 0. Okay, and then we want to add an event listener here as well, so we'll just say window.add event listener. We want to listen out for a mouse move, and then here we can just say let's pass in the E here. So if we just console.log, what this does is you can see all of your mouse movements where you are, and what this details is, you know, the X position, screen X, screen Y, that kind of thing, client X. So that's what we want. We want the client X and the client Y, which shows how many pixels on the X axis and Y axis our mouse position is. Okay, so what we want to do with these is we're going to target our mouse coordinates object that we created above, and we're going to say .target X, that's going to equal e.clientX minus window.innerWidth divided by 2. And the reason we're doing that is because we want to apply we're removing half of the pixels of the screen width, because we want to apply our animation from the center of the screen, okay, not the top left. That's why we're doing that. And then I'm going to say .target Y, and that's going to equal, and then we just need to change that to window.innerHeight. Okay, so now if we come down to our animate function, we're going to say if animating, we're going to say mouse coordinates .x equals, and then we're going to use that lerp function, remember, which we imported from our utils JavaScript file. We're going to say lerp, and here we're just going to say mouse coordinates .x to the current position, and then the mouse coordinates .target x for the target, and then we'll just say 0.075 for the time. I'm going to copy that again, and then just change these. So this will be y, change that to y, and target y. And then what we're going to do now is we're just going to say we're going to destructure x and y. Equal mouse coordinates. So we destructure those variables from our coordinates here for each animation frame, and then we're just going to target our container .style .transform equals, and again we're going to use this translate 3D, and here we're just going to use a template literal. We'll say minus x pixels, we'll say another one for y, we'll say minus y pixels, and then 0 for the 3D aspect. And then what we want to do now is come out of here, and we'll just say window dot request animation frame, and then we just want to keep calling this animate function. and then we can come out here, call the animate function, and now you'll see that our grid moves with our mouse, like so. And we get a nice lerp, so it's not linear, you get a nice smooth animation. Okay, so now if we click here, we get our content. Okay, so that's looking good. You get a nice smooth transition and you get the relevant text appear. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there, guys. It's been quite a long tutorial, but now this is how you get this kind of nice animation, these nice smooth transitions. Yeah, I mean, we could improve this. So for example, we could add, like, when we click on this, we could push a new address to the address bar. But for now, this will do. This is mainly just to show you how to get this nice animation with our mouse move going with a grid, and then just to get that smooth transition to the screen and then apply the relevant content. This could be like a blog layout or just, you know, just a project showcase for your portfolio. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Thanks for watching, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.